Good day everyone, I'm Francis, one of the pastors of Victory, and we are now in chapter 7. We will be talking about spiritual family and church life. Just a side note, bago tayo magpatuloy, spiritual family and church life is very important. But this chapter is not about neglecting our biological family. In fact, kapag naintindihan natin to ng mabuti itong chapter na to, this should encourage us to bring our biological family kung hindi pa sila part ng ating spiritual family. So right now, ano ba ang church? The church is God's plan for advancing His kingdom. Also, the church is an avenue kung saan natin pwedeng isabuhay ang ating pananampalataya sa ating Panginoon. We can practice love, forgiveness, generosity, and worship, at iba pa in the church. If you are a true disciple of Jesus, dapat nakikita mo sarili mo to be part of the church. Hindi ka pwedeng nag-iisa. So, ano ba ang itsura nito? Ano ba ginagawa sa church? Importante pa ba ang church? Lalo na minsan meron tayong mga nababasa at naririnig ng mga balita na hindi maganda tungkol sa church. So right now, first thing that we should learn is that the church of God is a victorious church. Bakit ito victorious? Dahil si Jesus is building His church. Jesus is building His church. That is why our name is Victory. Naniniwala tayo that the church of Jesus is a victorious church at hindi ito talunan. In Matthew 16, Jesus asked a question sa kanyang mga disipulo. But who do you say that I am? Sino sa tingin niyo ako? At yung masasabi niyo tungkol sa akin? Tapos si Peter replied by saying, Jesus, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Dito na ngayon pumasok, after Peter said this, dito na pumapasok yung memory verse natin in Matthew 16 verse 18. Sabi dito, kung babasahin natin, and I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. Jesus did not say that Peter is the rock, but the rock and the foundation of the church will be based on the truth na sinabi ni Peter. And what is that truth? That Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. The church is victorious because Jesus is building His church. Kung titingnan natin ang mundo natin ngayon, the church is experiencing a lot of persecution when it comes to mga mindsets. Minsan, pag patagal ng panahon, parang minsan nakikita natin parang mas kumukonti ang naniniwala kay God. If we're going to look sa ibang bansa like the US, there's political oppression sa mga Christians. Naniniwala tayo that God gives us yung gender natin, kung sino tayo, pero pagdating sa US, they have made a law na pwede mong piliin kung ano yung gender mo. Ikaw ang magde-define at hindi si God. In the US, it's allowed to abort children. Pero hindi tayo naniniwala sa ganun. And because sa paniniwala natin, Christians are persecuted. Nangyayari to sa mundo ngayon, but the enemy tries to use this to fabricate na walang magawa ang simbahan. Kumbaga, gumagawa siya ng fake news that the church is defeated. Pero kung titingnan natin, babalikan natin yung binasa natin kanina, sinabi dito that the gates of Hades will not conquer the church. So ano ba ang gate, di ba? Ang gate, ano ba purpose nito? Ang gate, yung mga gate natin, kumbaga ang purpose yan is to protect yung mga bahay natin. In other words, the kingdom of darkness is the one that is in the defensive side. Sila yung parang kailangan nila ng protection. Sila yung natatakot. Also, the term gates of Hades, kumbaga, it's an expression kung saan nagsisimula ang kamatayan or death. But as we all know, Jesus defeated death when He went to the cross. In other words, the kingdom of darkness has already been defeated and the church is in the offensive. Tandaan natin that the church is God's idea. When we look at people, we will feel that the church is defeated. But when we know that it is Jesus building the church, meron tayong kasiguraduhan that it will be victorious. We are victorious. We are a victorious church at hindi tayo talunan. If we are part of His church, we will experience victory as well. That's why belonging to a church community is a vital part of following Jesus. In our old mindset, ang simbahan ay isang physical building. Pero ang salitang church comes from the Greek word ekklesia, na ito ay isang pagtitipon ng mga taong naniniwala at nananampalataya sa Diyos. Or in other words, it is a gathering. So basically, church pertains to people at hindi building. Kung babalikan natin ang ating one-to-one, the church is where we start to have new relationships, friendship, fellowship, worship, discipleship. It's about relationship with other believers. In 1 Corinthians 12, verse 27, it says here, "Now you are the body of Christ, and each one of you is a part of it." Dito makikita natin na hahalintulad ang simbahan sa isang katawan. There are 3 things na gusto kong i-share dito sa scripture na binasa natin. Our body, maraming yung parts, and every part is one, unique and important. Every part has a purpose. And third, every part should be connected to one another. Una, every part is unique and important. The church is one body made of many different parts. Isipin mo, kung lahat ng parte ng katawan natin puro mata, di ba? Mata, or puro ilong, or puro tenga, di ba ang pangit tignan nun? And not only that, kapag ganun yung itsura nun, our body will not function properly. Remember, magkakaiba tayo, pero lahat tayo importante sa mata ng Diyos. Pangalawa, that every part has a purpose. Kamay, paa, ilong, tenga, may purpose yan. And no matter what you feeling mo, ikaw yung kamay or paa or ilong, ganyan. Kumbaga, every part has a purpose. Kumbaga, kailangan, I'm reminded of this, kapag nagugutom tayo, di ba? Kumbaga, yung tiyan natin parang kukulo yan. Tapos doon, biglang, syempre, para ikaw, masatisfy yung katawan. Ano yan ngayon, parang kapag may nilutong sinigang, ganyan, tapos sobrang naaamoy mo. Yung ilong, sasabihin niya na, uy, eto, meron ditong pagkain, punta tayo dyan. So ngayon, what will happen? Hindi naman pwede yung ilong yung pupunta dun sa pagkain, di ba? Pero meron tayong paa that will help us go in that place. And of course, meron tayong kamay para kunin yung pagkain na yun and yung bibig para bumukas. If one part of the body rebels, okay, makipag-away, sabi niya, ayoko dito sa katawan na to, ganyan. Ano mangyayari doon sa katawan, di ba? Mahihirapan. And that's the reason why that every part of the body has a purpose. Kapag ginampanan natin yung part na yon, or ginampanan ng parts ng body yung part nila, kumbaga, the whole body is satisfied. And for us, as church members, kumbaga all of us has a purpose. And lastly, every part kailangan connected to the body. Kumbaga, they should depend on one another. Dahil for example, one part, kumbaga, umalis yan sa katawan. For example, my hands, umalis yan sa katawan. Ang mangyayari dito sa kamay ko? Mamamatayan, mawawalan ng buhay kasi hindi siya connected sa katawan. In the same way with us, if we are not connected with the church, with one another, tayo rin ang mahirapan. In our modern time, we are so used sa pakikinig ng or watching preachings in the internet or online. But we have to understand that the church is not just about listening to the preaching of the word. Kumbaga, hindi ibig sabihin na umattend tayo ng service online or miski na umattend tayo ng service na physical service, on-site service, hindi ibig sabihin nun that connected na tayo kagad sa church. Our attendance does not mean we are connected to the church. But when we say that we are connected to the church, kailangan meron tayong relationship with one another. We are connected with the people. And that's why Victory Group is very important. Because this is where we get connected with one another. So the church as the body of Christ here on earth, kumbaga we are His hands, His feet, and His mouth reaching out to the world. as a church, kailangan nagkakaisa tayo to help the world know who Jesus is. There's this movie, Remember the Titans. I like this movie. This movie is a football game. But the reason why this is a beautiful movie, it's a true story about this coach na pinagsama, kumbaga nagbubuo siya ng isang football team. Pero the tension here, when he was trying to build the football team, this was the time. Kumbaga, medyo mainit yung racial issues, being a black and a white person. Kumbaga ngayon, na-experience natin yun, nakikita natin yun sa US. Pero during that time, kumbaga dati pa, gano'n yun. And this was the first football team na ma-assemble na mix yung color, na may black at saka may white. Kumbaga, we can see in the movie that this two group of people, yung pinagsama, they had many differences. Kumbaga, nag-aaway sila, ganyan. But when they went to camp, ganyan, training camp, lahat sila magkakasama, ganyan. When they started to learn, to get connected, to know one another. Tapos yun, when they went, kumbaga, they build a strong bond with the one another. Kaya when they went back do sa kanilang mga bahay, nawiwirduhan yung mga tao sa kanila, bakit kaibigan mo tong white person na to? Bakit kaibigan mo tong black person na to? Pero sila naintindihan nila yun. Kumbaga, they started to realize that even if magkaiba kami ng kulay, this person is my teammate. He is like my family. And when they started to understand that, tapos yung nagsimula yung mga games, ganyan. Kumbaga, sila lang yung team na mixed color, but when they started the game, until the end of the movie, makikita natin that they were undefeated until they became champions. Wala silang na-experience sa talo. Because even if they were different with each other, they still moved as one. All of us are part of the body of Christ. I hope that in our differences, that we know that we are His hands, His feet, and His mouth, so that people in the world will know what the church is all about. Church leaders equip members for ministry. In Ephesians 4, verse 11 to 13, it was He who gave some to be apostles, some to be prophets, some to be evangelists, and some to be pastors and teachers, to prepare God's people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up until all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Here in verse 12, makikita natin yung emphasis ng pag-uusapan natin, which is translated in other versions as well. For example, in the NASB, sabi dito, for the equipping of the saints for the work of service. In the NLT version, their responsibility is to equip God's people to do His work. In the Message translation, to train Christ's followers in skilled servant work, working within Christ's body. So here, makikita natin that the main job of pastors and leaders in the church is to prepare and equip the believers to do the work of the ministry. The fivefold ministers, which we talked about kanina, apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers, are not to do all the works of ministry. Kumbaga, professional ministers should give most of their time teaching and coaching and equipping God's people for ministry. Not just ministering directly themselves. Since everyone has a purpose, the role of leaders sa church is to help the members of the body grow in capacity to minister, para matulungan ang lahat kung ano at paano gamitin yung spiritual gifts na binigay sa atin ng Panginoon. That's why in church, we should not compare ourselves with one another. Buti pa siya, ganyan. Or there's no room for pride sa atin na thinking na, mas magaling ako dito sa taong ito. In the church, everyone has a purpose. No one is a spare part. That's why church leaders should give time to equip leaders. You know what? In the game of basketball, kumbaga tayo, we love playing yung mga basketball players in the NBA, di ba? Like LeBron James, Steph Curry, ganyan. We like watching them in basketball. But there's a group of people na we don't see, di ba? And as much as we enjoy this game, there's a group that helps us enjoy this game as well na hindi natin nakikita. And it is the coaches. Because of these coaches, meron yung coach, tapos meron dyan assistant coach, meron dyan yung yung trainer na coach, na assistant coach focus in training, may assistant coach focus in the health, ganyan. Kumbaga, these coaches help equip these NBA superstars to become the best person or the best player that they can be so that they will be healthy and be able to play the game. I realize in the game of basketball right now, it is not about kung sino yung meron ka na pinakamagaling na player for you to win a championship. But instead, those who win championships is the one with the people who are the most healthiest. And ito yung ginagawa ng coaches to keep them in tip-top shape. And when leaders are able to train and equip others in the church, kumbaga, mas maraming tao ang makaka-experience ng pagmamahal ng Panginoon. As we say here in Victory, isa sa ating victory quotes, every member a minister.